The next topic I wanted to talk about was population health. You know, there isn't an employer that I know that isn't focused on improving the health and well-being of their population. And, you know, I have often said, you know, we have 85% of employers focusing on wellness, but we don't necessarily see the outcomes across the population. You know, we're seeing still kind of a continuation of many of the issues around chronic disease, obesity, and other elements. So I guess I would start with saying, you know, what are employers typically doing today, and what are we seeing that's having the most impact, effective impact? So Bruce, maybe you could start with what you're typically seeing employers do today. Sure.
I think employers typically today are viewing the supply chain, if you will, as providing a defined set of services through defined existing channels. So for example, the health plans are generally the ones providing chronic condition management, catastrophic case management services. Then there's another compartment, if you will, or service line where wellness or well-being services are being provided. We hear of new entities. Financial well-being is fairly recent. We're seeing more in terms of resilience and stress management. To that end, EAP seems to be having a bit of a resurgence. But generally, the services that our employers are embracing are being administered through pre-existing channels. Certainly, there's some new focus on digital solutions and digital offerings, but I think at the same time as it is helpful, it also begs for perhaps employers to reconsider how they are purchasing those services and whether they are actually deriving value in the way that they would like to be deriving value from those service offerings.
Yeah. So I think what you're referring to is somewhat kind of outsourcing population health, and you know, is that working? And I know, Andy, you've done a lot of work in this area, but internalizing this whole issue. I mean, maybe you could talk about some of this.
So yeah, I think, you know, like Bruce said, we've gone from physical health then to the emotional, mental health, now into the financial wellness aspect. But a lot of large companies are even moving into purpose. So again, as you're trying to motivate people, you know, you can pay people to do things for a short time, but it doesn't have a long-term effect that is shown. You got to find out what that individual's purpose is. So you know, we talk about population health, but probably we need to start shifting to personalized health. This is like personalized medicine, because what motivates you doesn't necessarily motivate me. And that's harder, it really is. And so rather than trying to paint a broad brush, and I think a lot of companies are starting to step back and going, okay, we've moved the dial a little bit, but just not enough. What are we missing? And I think a lot of it is that personal motivation.
Yeah, and what we're hearing much more about is a culture of health. And of course, culture is not the same for every organization. And I know culture is huge. In the Presbyterian Church. Maybe you could explain how you become relevant to the population that you serve.
Yeah, I think the word purpose is really good. And I think we needed to start with recognizing whole person well-being. In a religious, faith-based organization, these are men and women who are responsible for the health of a congregation. And so to kind of extend that, there's a renewal program that our pastors are offered during their pastoring and at various intervals. But in this renewal program, they deal with vocational health, they deal with spiritual health, they deal with physical health and financial health and emotional. And so we kind of took that as the pillar and have just used those tentacles to talk about well-being and tried to create opportunities for them to think about well-being in all kinds of ways. So like many organizations, we have a platform, a technology platform that accumulates credits so that they get rewards. And rewards for us is a lower deductible. So even though they're income sensitive, they can be cut in half. And little teeny things like build a garden, take a walk, make daily prayer a disciplined part of your life. Those things have points associated with them. And so the feedback we've gotten, well, we don't have fewer diabetics, by the way, but the feedback that we've gotten from them is that you are meeting us where we are. And I think that's a part of addressing the issue of health.
And Andy, from a cultural standpoint, very different, Prudential Financial.
Right.
I mean, how do you make it relevant in an organization like a financial entity?
Well, so even different cultures within Prudential. So many of our business groups have so many different cultures, and so it's some of it's data driven, where we take the data and we'll approach one business different than we will with another group, and we look at it by age group, millennials. So you're kind of standardizing across groups, but you're able to then meet their needs. And you talk about millennials and younger people. So the purpose-driven drives them more than the physical health. Yes, we have the gyms, things like that. So you're trying to meet people in different ways. Some don't mind the technology. Some like the telephonic. We even have in-person coaches too. So, and what we're finding is millennials like the in-person coaching. So, so you're trying to meet everybody where they are, taking that whole person mentality. But it's difficult, and trying to keep on top of this all the time and in front of people. But I think the other thing is engaging the leadership in their influence on the health of the population.